Welcome to 2021 Annual General Meeting. My name is Lars Lindell and I'm the CEO of Acconeer. This year we could not invite shareholders due to the COVID pandemic, so we are having this as a pre-recorded presentation. So this presentation will be the same format as last year. We will initially give some general slides about the company, which some shareholders have seen many times before, but if there are new people in the audience, then we want to repeat those messages. Secondly, there will be a presentation on what did we say we would do for 2021 and what have we actually done. And then finally, we will give a peek into 2021 and what we're going to do for the future. So we start here, explore the next sense. Well, our technology is pulse coherent radar, and we're combining the best of two worlds, pulsed, which reduces power consumption, and coherent, which means that we are extremely accurate. And the actual innovation in our product is to be pulse and coherent at the same time, which gives a superior power consumption. The vision of the company is really to be world-leading in small, cost-efficient and energy-efficient radar systems for innovation and sustainability in high-volume production. From the onset and still, we've always had the basic commercial strategy to be very broad in the market space and basically make our products available to customers over the internet. So hardware via our internet distributors and software from our websites, which means that everyone in all corners of the world should be able to buy our technology already from day one. So we are in many different areas, robots, consumer electronics, IoT, which tends to be the biggest market segment for us at the moment, industrial and agriculture, health and fitness. What we mean with that is basically to measure a breathing rate, but also pulse. And then in automotive, which we think that will ultimately become our biggest market segment. The unique selling points with our products are really the fact that we are very, very accurate, sub-millimeter accurate at the same time as we have an extremely low power consumption. Of course, we can recognize gestures. We have optimized everything in a very small package. So our package is basically 5 by 5 millimeters in area and 0.8 millimeters high. And that includes antenna system, so extremely small. What we mean with that material identification is that we can, from the bounced signal or the detected signal, see the difference between different materials with different dielectric constants. And that is used typically in robot lawnmower, looking down, saying what type of surface is it driving on, or a robot vacuum cleaner looking down, what type of floor is it driving on. And then robustness. Robustness is nothing particular with our radar, but in radar, if you compare it to other types of technologies. We can be behind plastics. We don't need a hole or an aperture. We can radiate through the plastics or thin glass. There are no natural sources of interference for a radar. If you compare it to, for instance, ultrasound, that can be disturbed by sound, or infrared, which needs a hole or an aperture to look out. And if that gets dirty, then the sensor becomes blind. Can also be disturbed by LED lamps, etc. So radar as a technology is very robust for harsh environmental conditions. 60 gigahertz radar competition. Well, what we see, we are in the 60 gigahertz band. What we see more and more companies coming into our frequency band where we are. We think that is very good because that actually gives a critical mass that are telling people responsible for regulatory schemes all around the world that they should open up this band and allow radars in this band. So the fact that more and more companies are coming into the same frequency band is a positive for us. As you can see in this picture, on power consumption and on size, we are unique. There's only really one company that has something that is similar, which is Infineon with the chipset that is used in Google's Project Solid. But we, of course, have a much more power-efficient technology. We actually compete more with other types of technologies, and we've listed 3 different types here. One is infrared, which is probably the toughest competitor we have here. So here we have a component from STMicro, which is a very small, very cost-efficient IR sensor and a tough competitor. Ultrasound is also in many use cases used, and that's something we compete with. And also then magnetometers are used in parking sensors, for instance, to detect if there's a car or not. I think where radar is superior to all of these 3 technologies really in the environmental robustness, and I think that is one of the key reasons why radar technology gets selected. We often say that we have a unique technology. Every time I go and meet a customer, which is not so often anymore, but every time we meet customers, I always ask, who else does this and how do they compare? And the answer we get is that we are unique. Another company that has had the same message for a while now is Gartner. In 2008, we were listed as a cool vendor. Only 3 companies on the worldwide scale that got that nomination. And in order to get that, you need to have a unique technology, but not only a unique technology, but also a technology that can make an impact in the market. They actually nominated us also in 2019, and in 2020 they wrote about Acconeer in the hype cycle report for sensors. So we are very happy about Gartner following us and saying very nice things about us. 3D sensor market. We will be a part, or we are a part of the 3D sensor market. It is a very big market. It's about $3 billion big, and it's forecasted to grow with double digits in the future. And everyone that follows technology knows that intelligent sensors is really something that is very topical today, especially in the context of smart buildings, smart offices, and smart cities. I often get questions about how can you so confidently say that you can source sensors in a world where we read every day in the newspaper that it's very difficult to source silicon. So I will use this old slide to explain our production process again. We order wafers from a company in Singapore called Global Foundries. Once they have produced the wafer, which is a disk, that is sent to Acconeer in Korea, that basically cuts it and puts it into a product, and then basically that is sent from Korea to Force Technology in Denmark, which do the production testing for us. So from what has happened in today's market is that it used to take about 6 months from us putting a purchase order until we have a ready product. That has extended to about 8 months. But what we've always said from a strategic point of view is that we should always have many wafers in what you call a die bank, which is a repository where you can store wafers, which means that we have a lot of wafers in our die bank, which means that we can take them up and we can produce and get sensors to the market within 11 weeks. That 11 weeks used to be 7, now it's extended to 11 weeks, but still we see no problem of us being able to supply enough chipsets, regardless if the lead times have increased to the 8 months and to the 11 weeks. So that's why we can say confidently we will be able to ship sensors. Next slide here. This is a slide that actually I've taken out of 2020 year's presentation when we presented last year. What did we say that we would do? Well, we said that we would improve the cost of our sensor, as well as reduce system cost, which is the cost of the environment where you put our sensor, and introduce a new module, which is our entrance module. Continue to develop more use cases and launch products in new areas. Continue to launch new customers, but also help existing customers grow their business, but also maybe launch more than one product. We've been very focused on deepen our cooperation with Alps Alpine and help them win more design wins, but also the recently announced partnership where we are developing next generation product together. And then, of course, focus on bigger opportunities, bigger customers in order to ramp our revenue line. And I'll come back to this slide later in the presentation. But before that, we have made a lot of investments in our product lines. Most of our money goes into developing our existing products, but also new products. Since for a product company, the product you have is essentials. And we have recently made 2 very big announcements in the product areas, and I will let Mikael Egard, co-founder of Acconeer, introduce what is driving our development and why are we doing these big investments.
Thank you very much, Lars. And to start with, we will look at our current product offering before moving into the new additions that we are making. So the headline of our product offer is, of course, the A111 pulse coherent radar sensor. It's 5 by 5 millimeters in area and 0.8 millimeters thick, so tiny, consumes extremely low power, below milliwatt power consumption, and it contains all the high frequency electronics, including transmitter and receiving antennas that is needed to have a complete radar system. This takes away a lot of the requirements on the customer when it comes to having knowledge in this very advanced technology. What the customer does in their product, they take our sensor and integrate it with a host, a little processor in their system. And to help customers get quicker to the market, we have developed what we call modules, which features our A11 sensor together with a processor. So we have 3 different examples here with the high performance module, the IoT module, and the entry module. So pre-integrated modules that shortens customers' time to market. For each of these modules and the sensor, we have what we call an evaluation kit. So it's a board that you connect with USB to your PC. And by doing that, you can get started really quickly, developing, evaluating the technology, and also doing advanced signal processing development. To do this, you go to our website, download our software free of charge, and then you go to GitHub to get our open source exploration tool, which is a way of visualizing the data from the sensor, start working with it, and also get access to our algorithm libraries for your development. And customers working with this, we find them in many different use cases. So from parking sensors to robot navigation to gesture control. And there are resources for all these customers to start working with the technology. And going back to the modules, these have also been developed with different use cases in mind. Going from the more advanced, such as robot navigation, for instance, to the more less complexity in terms of processing power with presence detection. And this is what you see on this slide. So our 3 modules, and the reasoning behind having these 3 is really to be able to help the customers in these different segments. So going from the high complexity, the high performance module, which features more processing power and memory, can do more complex computations, down to the entry module, which has a smaller and cheaper processor. So the entry module has an M0 processor, the IoT module has an M4 processor, and the high performance module has an M7 processor, with cost increasing from the M0 to the M4 to the M7. And all of these modules are based on our A11 sensor. And as Lars explained about our unique selling points, we have the combination of high accuracy with a very low power consumption, together with additional benefits such as being able to get very high update rate from the sensor, making it robust against the environmental disturbances, and being able to integrate it behind plastic and glass that are painted, for instance, so a design benefit. What we're doing now is that we're adding a new version to the A1 family. So the new sensor is called A121. It will feature even better or lower power consumption. It will have higher quality, even higher quality of the data that you get out from the sensor, which is important, for instance, for the gesture control use cases. We have made changes to it that makes it easier for the customer to integrate it in the system, and also the customer can save cost because they don't need as many components to support the radar sensor as they do with the A111. And we also increase the temperature range, going up to 105 degrees, and the range for doing distance measurements. So the A121, part of the A1 family, moving to the A211, is a new product. It's the product that we announced that we're developing together with Alps Alpine. And the biggest feature increase here is that we're adding multiple antennas. So we'll be able to, from a single sensor, have high accuracy angular resolution measurement. And we're adding the processor inside the sensor. So the processor that we have in the modules, we now move into the sensor to even more increase the value of our offer to customers. There's of course a lot of research and development going into the sensor development, but we're of course also spending a lot of effort on developing our different use cases for our current and also future sensor roadmap. I listed 3 different use cases here. There are of course many more, but I listed these ones as it's projects that we have with external parties, and we also have won public grants for doing this research. The first one is in sleep monitoring. So here we're working with a Swiss company called Sleepis, who are developing a novel sleep apnea monitoring system. And we're using experts at Gothenburg University to evaluate the solution, and they are experts in sleep apnea monitoring. What we'll do here is that we will use the radar data, the high quality radar data, to not only track breathing movement, but also to track the movements of the human body while you are in your bed sleeping, so that Sleepis can get the data they need to construct a product that monitors sleep apnea. What you see in the picture here in the middle is a breathing pattern. So we use the high accuracy of the radar sensor to track the movement of the chest and the body to get information on how the person is doing. And this work is then funded by a grant from Eurostars, which we won together with Sleepis and Gothenburg University. The second one is presence localization. And here again it's about multi-antenna system, being able to track where in the vehicle, in this case, are there people present and how are they moving. And the data you see in the middle is then symbolizes the different positions in a car. And this work is funded by WASP together with, and here we're working together with Lund University on building this competence in how to most accurately, in the best way, position the antennas in this system. And of course, here Alps Alpine is a big stakeholder in this work as well. The third one is the work that we have announced recently. We're working together with Imagimob and OSM Group, developing a in-ear gesture control solution. And we have demonstrated a first prototype now that I will show in a few seconds here as well. But here it's really about taking the high quality radar data, combining it with Imagimob's Edge-Eye machine learning competence and OSM Group's competence in building small integrated in-ear headphones and making a successful product offer out of that. And I have the demo here. So a small in-ear headphone featuring our A11 sensor. And I will demonstrate to you what gestures we have integrated in this prototype now.
Next. Previous. Volume.
So, thank you. That was the demo of our new in-ear prototype that we have developed together with Imagimob and OSM Group. Lars.
Thank you, Mikael. So I will go into another slide that I've shown before, our go-to-market strategy. There are many channels we can use to get to the market. The ones where we are predominantly working today is with distributors. And we have a global network of distributors. System integrators, what we mean with the system integrators is a customer that takes our product, builds a system that they in turn needs to sell to someone else. Alps Alpine is a very good example of a systems integrator. They make systems for automotive and they are using our radar sensor in that. Direct sales means that we sell directly to the customers. We don't do that a lot. We predominantly do it with customers which we have customer projects. So these are customers that we work very closely with in order to help them get products to the market. An example, typically the customer stories that we have published are companies that we have worked directly with. And there are the two justifications for doing a customer project. Either it's a new use case, which we want to make sure that when it hits the market, it works well. So we want to work closely with those companies. The other justification is, of course, it's very big customers, very big opportunities, and we want to make sure that nothing goes wrong. We can also work with module providers. We have launched our own modules, but we still haven't launched anyone else's modules. But we do have discussions with module providers, and we will see variants of our modules coming to market, based on other companies' design. And then, of course, ultimately, we can use other semiconductor companies as channels into the market, who maybe have a product gap in their product portfolio, and we can help them fill that gap. Global distributor networks. This is almost done or done. I almost said that last year as well, but since then we have added a few new ones. Especially here, we have added Mouser, which is together with DigiKey, world leader in internet-based distribution. And we have added Marubun in Japan. But what you see here is a network of distributors that covers all of the important geographies of the world. The basic idea behind this is for us to be able to ramp up sales activities very fast without having to build organizations by ourselves. But also, in each geography, there should be at least 2 routes for the customer to buy a sensor. And now actually with the addition of Mouser, there are 3 different routes. So they can go to local distributor, they can go to DDK, or they can go to Mouser. And the whole idea with that is to ensure that they get a competitive pricing from the distributor. 39 launch customers globally. On this slide here you can see where we have launched customers. China is our biggest market, both in revenue actually, but also in launch customers. Europe is a good second, and then you have Korea, Japan following. If you look at what use cases, the most important one right now is parking sensors. And when I say parking sensor, it's a fairly simple thing on the ground that detects if there is a car or not. The reason why we are winning such number of parking sensors is simply because of our low power consumption. You don't want to cable to each parking spot, and so you need to be battery driven, and there we have the best technology. We actually are not aware of anyone else being able to integrate a radar into parking sensors. So if you look at it on a global scale, we're probably leading our competitors with 18-0. Smart presence is simply an IoT application where you detect if there are people or not, or animals or not. Waste management means measuring levels in waste bins, and robotics, object detection means measuring either presence, but also maybe distance and angle to an object as the robot moves around. And then we have some other use cases which are not easily put in the other categories. But as you can see, all of our focus use cases we now have, customers have launched globally. We are working with customer stories, and with that, these are companies who allow us to talk about their product, but also the fact that we are in their product. So from Japan, we actually have 2 robots. One is Yukai. In that robot, we do the presence detection. We detect if a human comes close to the robot. And the Lovot, which is an award-winning robot that is basically, I would call it, companionship robot or a pet replacement. There we are being used for object detection, which means that there is one on the front when it goes forward, and there is one on the back when it goes backwards. Customer parking sensor, as I've said, we have 18 launches. The latest customer story was YNX, which is a Chinese company. Their great customers is Tencent in China, which is a huge company, and have bought a lot of sensors from it. IoT Solution is a Malta-based company that is a part of a bigger group, but it's a company that is specifically set up to address smart cities applications. And Hancom in Korea. Hancom is a very big company, has many different types of divisions, but their idea is really to do a call it an Airbnb, but for a parking sensor. You can share your parking space with others and make some income on that. Measuring levels in tanks, where here we have Tel China, which is a Chinese-based customer who basically does sewage meters, measuring the level in sewers and seeing if a network of sewers are getting flooded or not. And then Packwise, which is a sustainability type of company. In their device, they have both a GPS and our sensor. And what they do is that they offer a service to large companies that uses IBC tanks, international bulk containers, basically telling them where is the tank and is it getting empty or not. And if it's getting empty, they offer to go out and replace it and then basically reuse the tank instead of discarding it. So award-winning company in Germany that has a very exciting product, we think. So one of the things we want to give an insight to is what do we have in pipeline for 2021 or 22. And these are customer projects, and it's also customer projects where we have multiple customers all over the globe, which means that we are pretty certain that some of them will come out within 2021 or 2022. So the first one here is basically a smart cities application, and it's basically simply touchless button. So instead of having to press a button on a traffic light, you can just put your hand there and it triggers an activity. We have several customers in the pipeline of launching this particular application. Smart buildings, toilets, if you are getting close to a urinal or if you are sitting in a toilet, are you present or not? And also intelligent lamping or lighting, are there sitting people or not? Are there sitting people at a desk or not? Areas where there's a lot of interest in our product. A completely different areas is actually agriculture. We see three types of applications in agriculture which we're working on. One is for the machinery, to help the machinery detect, for instance, distance to ground or objects in front of the vehicle. We also see in livestock management, so basically counting cows or pigs or measuring the size of them. They are tagged with RFID, which means that they can identify what the cow or pig is, and they can also see has it grown or is it not feeling well. And then of course measuring levels in tanks, but more in silos where you have seeds and things like that. Healthcare and fitness. There we actually have projects where we have customers that are building baby monitors, measuring breathing patterns, but also how they're moving during their sleep. Mikael mentioned the research that we are doing together with Sleepis, but we also have customer projects in pipeline in this area. And then of course, what Mikael was showing to you, gesture control of headsets. And then of course, in 2022, we will have cars coming out with our sensor in it. And of course, it's a use case of access control with your foot or passenger detection, saying is there a live object in the car or not. So all of these ones we have in a fairly advanced stage, and that means that we can, with a high probability, say that we will have launches either in 2021 or in 2022. And as Mikael demonstrated, this is basically applications based on the research that we are doing for these kind of applications. A few words about automotive, since that is a very big aspect of what we do. We have a strategic relationship with Alps Alpine. We have been awarded 3 design wins for the access control, kick detection, and 3 design wins when it comes to passenger detections. We will launch new use cases with Alps Alpine. We have several that we are working on, but we're not going to disclose what those are until we have actually confirmed wins in those areas. So we hope to increase both the number of design wins, but also the amount of use cases. Mikael also mentioned our strategic collaboration on the next generation sensor with Alps Alpine. This is probably the most important deal we have signed for our company. What we What our Alps get from us is, of course, they get access to our technology and to a sensor which they can purchase at the standard industry margin. They get exclusivity for the car market, and they get help from us building the software. What we get is, of course, we get their help in specifying the product. They also pay us for the assets that we're putting into the product. Then they will pay us per manufactured unit. And together we can combine both companies' volumes in order to get very good pricing from our suppliers. So what both companies get is a lower cost next generation sensor and a shared development cost. So we are basically halving our development cost for this product. A new slide is account development. Previously we have been publicizing how many EVKs we are selling and how extraordinarily well we've done actually in selling EVKs. What we are going to track and publicize on a quarterly basis is more information. So we are also tracking and telling the market how many launch customers do we have on a global basis, but also how many sold modules and how many sold sensors. So we are at the brink of reaching 10,000 sold modules and a little bit more than 300,000 sold sensors. And as we progress over the quarters, our shareholders should be able to see the progress we are doing. The other slide here, the lower bars in this slide is really our product revenues. So these are the revenues we are getting from selling products. And as you can see, we see a steady growth despite the problematics with COVID and everything. Our growth is accelerating, and the main reason for that, I think, is that we are not launching new customers, but our existing customers are buying more and more as they get more established with the products in their market. The other more light orange part of this graph is really the revenue we are getting from Alps Alpine. And then also what you see in this slide here is our gross margin for our products. So on the revenue we get from Alps Alpine, we actually have 100% gross margin. And for our products, in last quarter we had a 74% gross margin, which is actually higher than where we are aiming. We usually say that we are aiming for industry standard margins, which for me is somewhere between 40 and 60%, but right now we are actually significantly higher with that, which to some extent hangs together with currency fluctuations, but also product mix. But we are in a very good position where we can show a rapidly growing revenue line combined with high margins. So back to this slide. As I said, this one comes from 2020. Continue to improve costs. Yes, you've now seen that we've launched the XM132 and also improved the system costs, which, you know, XM132 is with an M0 processor, which makes it more credible for product, you know, customers who want to build systems but must press their cost down with the lowest cost processor. Continue to develop more use cases. Mikael demonstrated what we're doing research, but also I've been explaining here what we see in pipeline for launches. Launch new customers. We are at a rate where we are launching 5 or more each quarter, and I see no reason why we shouldn't be able to continue to do that, and with that growing our revenue line. We said that we would deepen the cooperation with Alps Alpine and help them win more design wins and develop additional products, and as you've seen, the most significant is really our agreement for next generation sensor. And then focus on customers with large potential volume and help them get to market. And we have many of those in pipeline. Some of the ones we have presented, like Hancom, are very big companies. Alps Alpine is also a good example on that. So what we are going to do for 2021 is really not that significantly different. We think we are on a very good path, and we basically want to do more of that. So we will continue to improve the cost of our sensor and reduce system cost with our A121, which we now have presented to the world. We will continue to invest in research for new use cases, but also launch customers on new use cases. We will, of course, continue to launch new customers in our existing areas, smart parking, Internet of Things, level measurements and robotics, and continue to focus on very large accounts, very large customers, and help them launch. And with that, of course, grow the revenue line. So our focus is very much on growing the revenue line, and we think it's working fine. So with that, I want to say thank you for listening to this presentation. And next year, we hope that we will be able to meet physically here as well. Thanks.